Let's start from the beginning. There are people who are cisgender and people who are transgender. Cisgender means that you identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. For example, if you were assigned female at birth, you still consider yourself a female. Now, same thing with men. Transgender is actually it's a lot more of an umbrella term that people think it is. Underneath the transgender umbrella would be non-binary people, which includes people like me. And non-binary is not some third gender. It is not just people who identify with they, them pronouns, even though I happen to be one of those people. Non-binary is yet another umbrella term for transgender individuals that do not fall into the binary of female or male. At first, I wasn't sure exactly how to label myself, and even now I do not like labels, if I'm being perfectly honest. But non-binary just kind of feels like the best way for me to not only express myself, but explain it to other people who might not understand it. I just don't really feel attached to any form of gender, really. I just kind of want to be me. I don't want the way I'm perceived to get in the way of people getting to know me and knowing who I am as a person. Gender dysphoria, I don't know if I could be a good example of that. It's different for everybody. It's different for every transgender person. There is a big debate within our community that you need to have gender dysphoria to be trans, which I personally disagree with because there is also the experience of gender euphoria, which I have also experienced. I just happen to have experienced gender dysphoria a few times within my life, but I also don't think we shouldn't discredit people if they haven't felt it. But people would probably say that gender dysphoria is an integral part of the trans experience. Gender dysphoria is, for me, is when it's little things. It's when I feel uncomfortable in the body that I'm in, is basically the best way to summarize it. But it's a lot of different things, a lot of small things that build up over time, that you notice in little situations every day. It's little things. It's when my dad calls me his daughter. It's when my sister calls me her sister. It's when somebody, well, this is to a lesser degree because I don't expect everyone to get my pronouns right away. I understand that to people it is a confusing topic, even though a lot of people say that that is not an excuse and you should just respect what people want to be called. I also understand that it is a change in language for people that are not used to it. Very little things like that, like when a professor might not call me by the correct pronouns, or a teammate in a work group might not call me by the correct pronouns, or when I'm an officer in my club and sometimes they'll refer to us as the girls. That's like, I'm not going to throw a fit about it, but they are little things that I notice and then I take note of. And all of those little things pile up into this giant pile of you're just a woman and you will never be anything else. And it sucks.
I would like to show you something that I don't really get to show people very often. This. It doesn't look like much, but this is actually my binder that I wear sometimes. I don't wear it often, mainly because I know how hard it is to walk across Texas State campus, and the whole point of this is to compress your chest and make it look flatter. Obviously, it's not completely flat. I can't really expect that as a person because of the sheer size of my chest. Not that it matters, but I'm a 32 double D bra size, typically. And when you're non-binary, or you're someone who's gender non-conforming, and you really just don't want to look like a woman, these are the measures you have to go through. And at least if you don't want to consider surgery, which is something that I do not want to consider, frankly, at least for now. Because typically with getting top surgery, it's, you know, a permanent thing. And as much as I love my gender identity and being able to express myself, especially when I am more masculine and I succeed at being more masculine, permanent change scares me when it comes to my body and my transition. So maybe later in life, I think it's just because I've been bullied and like gaslit my whole life, thinking that every decision I make is something that I am not sure of, that I haven't thought through enough. And that's not just with gender, it's with everything in my life. I'm a very insecure person, or at least I have been growing up. So putting that into the perspective of things like a possible transition for me, you know, also boobs are fun to have sometimes, okay? Listen. It's just things like this that you have to consider, I guess, you know? And I also realized that in making this documentary and having to put it on the internet for people to see, that it's going to be a reference point for people to see my experience, my very personal experience with this. And it's not that I'm not comfortable, it's that I'm afraid of what will happen because of it. I guess that's almost the same thing. I guess I'm just scared of how people will react and how people will treat me. Because that's something I've been struggling with for a long time. I don't know if you notice how it kind of is a little big on, like, just slightly, it's slightly big on the shoulders, but it gives me that more boxy figure. And I actually realized I haven't worn my binder with this yet. It's not totally obvious, but you know, it's the little things that you buy, you know? It's little things like this. Just a sweater.
So I'm filming right now. We just got out of a meeting for my ad club about an hour ago. We were meeting with this guy named Bart Cloverfield from the Job Propulsion Lab. It's a special, I guess, nonprofit that helps students and people looking for jobs in the advertising industry. And I decided to reach out to them, not for an interview, but for just help, because Bart said that they're always very open to people asking for help. And I noticed something during that meeting that I feel like I should note here as well. This meeting was made by my fellow officers to reassure people about going into the field and make them feel better. And a lot of people came away with that message. And I didn't. All I came away with was more dread and anxiety about it. And I wanted to bust out my phone and record myself for B-roll, but I was attending the thing on my phone, so I couldn't really. And something that happened was that he was asking us about what our concerns were about going into the workforce, and like things that we don't really think about. And a lot of people gave a lot of stereotypical answers, or questions, I would say, where it's like, you know, I'm scared of the competition in the field. I'm scared of, you know, having a good enough portfolio. I'm scared of, you know, those entry-level jobs that actually require 2 or 3 years of experience. And I wanted to ask about my personal struggle really bad, but I don't think he could have given me a good answer. And that's kind of like, it's the reason why I'm making this, because I can't just ask an old cis straight white man about me being worried about being discriminated against because of who I am, you know? What would he even say? You can't just ask that. And I didn't, because I felt like the odd man out. Every time I think about asking people for advice, every time I think about asking people for advice, I shut myself down. Because I'm different. And not in like the stupid, shitty, I'm quirky way. I am fundamentally different from all of my peers on a whole nother level. How am I supposed to ask them for help when they don't really understand? How am I supposed to ask people for help when they don't really know what's going on with me? And they don't know how to answer the questions that I have. I don't know how to navigate putting my preferred name on a resume. I don't know how to navigate putting my pronouns somewhere and people not liking it. I don't have a way to ask people what's it like being a trans person in the workforce. I just have this fear that no one's going to give me an answer that will help me. Nothing productive will be said or done, and I have to fight through this on my own.
Something I've noticed in making this whole thing and talking to people, especially people that are close to me or want to be an ally, is the way that they try to empathize with what I'm going through. It's, they'll compare it to things like being open about your religion or your sexuality, and it's similar but not the same. It just isn't the same. And I don't think people understand that really.